And joining me now from London to discuss the top stories in film and TV is Arise correspondent Judita Silva. It's great to have you on the show, Judita. Let's talk about this. Britney Spears and her conservatorship. It's a topic that you see everyone's been talking about. Everyone has been in on this conversation. It's something that people just cannot get enough of. And now Netflix wants to also get in on that conversation, but in the way Netflix only knows how, by creating their own documentary or story about it. Tell us about what's going on there.
Yesterday of Britney versus Spears, but it's only 18 seconds long, and it's just the sound of Britney Spears leaving a voice message in 2009 for a lawyer. And it's just left hanging. But they said that an official trailer will come out on the 22nd of September, and then the actual documentary will be released on the 28th of September, just a day before she's next due in court on the 29th. And it's going to explore this bizarre conservatorship that she's been living under for the past 13 years. But based on that precise subject matter, everyone's doubtful that you'll see Britney Spears being part of this documentary because she was such a closely guarded commodity by the people running the conservatorship. So everyone's kind of querying, so where are you going with this, Netflix? Because they've been very cloak and dagger. They're not giving any statements about it. Neither is the director. So there's a big question mark over this.
Especially after, the Framing Britney Spears documentary and how Britney also reacted to that documentary. She wasn't very happy about it, especially because she didn't have a say in it. And she said she was painted as how did she put it? I think she called herself like a crying puppy or something. So she wasn't very happy with that. Do you think Netflix should take a cue from that and understand that without Britney, they cannot successfully do something that is not going to get, backlashed?
This is like the vicious side of show business. This is the business side of show business, where at the end of the day, this is a very hot topic. And whoever is going to get to this topic first is going to be the winner, because it seems like anything you put Britney conservatorship on is going to get eyeballs on it. And then when Netflix is doing it, they're going to do it well. And they've said that it's been a year in the making. So they're not rushing this through. But at the same time, with the Framing Britney Spears, that came from the perspective of fans who've dedicated their life to liking this pop star, and they knew something was wrong and they couldn't get away. They couldn't reach her. So they said that, go with your gut. We feel something is wrong. Let's fight for her, even though she won't fight for herself. And that was the glory behind the X factor of that documentary. This one, we think, will be in the true vein of Netflix, a lot more investigative, a lot more factual, and it's going to delve into the nitty gritty now that we've had that shock statement that Britney Spears gave.
Daniel Craig, he's in a bit of hot water right now because he came out to say that he cannot imagine, or he just is against the possibility of the next 007 or the next Bond being female. And people are upset about this. I'm not surprised. Tell us some more about this.
So somebody makes a statement with the best intentions and people just hear what they want and they run with it. What he said technically was that he believes that he doesn't think a woman should play James Bond. He just feels that people, like women, should be written better parts that are as good as a James Bond, but it was specifically written for a woman. So you don't need to have a James Bond now be female or be of color. Write a part that is as good for a woman or for a person of color, which is what we said when we first discussed the whole idea of Lashana Lynch being the next Bond. And Barbara Broccoli, the producer behind the franchise, and her family behind the franchise, has said the same thing, that she doesn't mind James Bond being any color. He can be any color, but he has to be male. And she believes that good parts can be written specifically for women because James Bond was written specifically by Ian Fleming for a man.
Agree with you more. I understand exactly where Daniel Craig was coming from, which is why when I saw the criticism, I'm like, this is what happens. You react before you listen. You haven't listened properly to what he had to say. So is it possible that, again, because lately, Judita, these days, I don't even understand what's going on. If J.K. Rowling could get cancelled, anything is possible. So is it possible that Daniel Craig might just, take the fall for this lack of assimilation?
I don't know, because there are a lot of people who are on Daniel Craig's side because they've said the same thing. People who are hardcore James Bond fans said that First of all, when you analyze James Bond, he's a womanizing alcoholic from a dysfunctional background who goes around killing people and is a big secret of the Secret Service. That's not exactly someone to look up to. So it's somebody that it was written for with all the isms and schisms of masculinity. Stop putting a square peg in a round hole. But with Daniel Craig coming out and saying this just before the movie's release, he might polarize people because I like to call them like the extreme feminists will say women can do anything. So now I'm boycotting the film. But the way I see it is Bond is such a franchise that's beyond canceling. So even if Daniel Craig makes a faux pas, the film will be okay.
Talking about fitting a square peg in a round hole, Denzel Washington is playing arguably Shakespeare's most famous tragic anti-hero Macbeth. Judita, this, you see, it's too much for me. I don't know what is going on. Is it possible that this color-blind casting can work? I mean, what are we trying to prove here, honestly?
Okay, I'm in two minds about this because growing up in London and going to school here, you know that Chaucer, Dickens, and Shakespeare, you have to study the bard. Shakespeare is like oxygen in the UK. So when we were studying it in school, what you'd always do is watch TV adaptations, and TV adaptations were like a filming of the play. And I'm used to seeing Othello always being played by a white man in blackface. That was okay. It was theater. Anthony Hopkins did Othello as a white man in blackface. What you're seeing now is it's in the hands of Joel Cohen. It's starring his wife, Frances McDormand, as Lady Macbeth, and it's got Denzel Washington. These are actors that have done theater. They are great. You know they have the chops to play these parts. And I don't feel bad that Shakespeare is getting a reversal because I had to put up with it the other way around for years. Let's see what Denzel can do.
When you put it that way, I completely agree with you. But okay, now, you see, are we going to see that criticism reversed now? Because, when we complain about it, everyone is like, oh, don't worry about it. It's okay. So is it possible that criticism of, oh, why did you just, why not just go with the normal? Why try to change the narrative? Are we going to see that criticism come up again? And then if we do, what does that now tell us about, people's objectivity when it comes to handling situations like this?
That's a good question. And inevitably there will be critics saying that, okay, if you don't like it one way, two wrongs don't make a right. But I think that's what A24 is like, the golden child of Oscars. They're just dripping in Oscars because they make such fantastic productions. And that's why they were smart. They went to a Coen brother and they've got someone like Denzel. He's respected across the board. He is loved across the board. And everyone has always said the difference why British actors do so much better in Hollywood than American actors is because to be an actor in Britain, you have to train in theater first. In America, there are a lot of stars who are too scared of theater because there's nowhere to hide. Denzel is not one of them. So pick an actor who's Black, who everyone respects and has the chops to play the part. It's harder to criticize because you're justified. You can then say, he was chosen based on talent and nothing else.
Well, Judita Silva, we'll be back to talk about this eventually. I foresee it. Thank you so much for joining me on Arise 360 today.